Tonight on CTV, find out what went wrong during the first football game of the season and how e-bikes are taking over CSU's campus.
As well as how this historic Fort Collins home made it to court and how CSU is continuing its fight against climate change.
All that and more on CTV starting now.
Good evening, Rams. I'm Ren Wadsworth.
And I'm Robbie Patla. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Following a shooting threat against Fort Collins schools, police have increased their student resource officers at Poudre School Districts. The Fort Collins officers first heard about the threat late on September 2nd via Snapchat. Following countless concerned citizens' calls, the police set up camp at schools in the Larimer County area. Lieutenant Kelly Weaver states that the shooting post was, quote, fourth-hand information at minimum, end quote. Both the district and the police believe the threat was unsubstantiated and fully investigated. But as of now, the security around the schools would only continue to heighten.
A Colorado State University alumni was able to escape the violence in Kabul, the capital city of Afghanistan, with the help of his former classmates. Mohammed Shamsi, his wife Faria Fayez Shamsi, and their two daughters were among a crowd of over 1,000 people trying to get through the military gates at the Kabul airport on August 18th. Luckily, after waiting for 12 hours to board a flight, Shamsi's family was able to make it to Warsaw, Poland, where they had to complete a 10-day quarantine. On August 31st, they were finally able to board a flight to Krakow, Poland. Shamsi and his family were able to find and escape with the help of his former CSU peers who had been fundraising to help him leave and resettle. Rams do in fact take care of Rams even in the midst of global conflict.
A year ago, COVID wasn't the only thing students had to worry about as the air quality index became dangerous due to the fires at Horsetooth. Hospitalization and fire researchers at Colorado State University believe that long-range smoke increased hospitalizations and negatively impacted breathing. They suggested to regularly check your phones and the news for updates on the quality of air and to better understand the index. However, fires from states over may be impacting us now similarly. The new COVID Delta variant combined with the poor air quality has now started to take a toll on hospitals here in Fort Collins as well.
Colorado State University researchers are part of a $15 million National Science Foundation research network to promote sustainability and equity in the western United States. Assistant Professor of the Department of Civil and Environment Engineering, Ryan Morrison, will lead CSU's involvement. The 5-year project will focus on 3 areas affected by wildfires, declining water supply, and urban growth. The areas include the Front Range, Upper Rio Grande, San Juan River, and the Pacific Northwest. The project will use scientists and researchers from 8 different universities and more than 50 partner organizations. They will seek input from indigenous populations, nonprofits, and local stakeholders to propose options that will benefit the environment.
For the past week, Larimer County hospitals have been over capacity due to the surge in hospitalizations. Following a large number of coronavirus and Delta variant cases, Fort Collins hospitals are struggling to keep up. The intensive care units usually host 77 to 80% of capacity, but since September 2nd has reached and stayed at 100%. Hospitals are now asking citizens to get the vaccine to help decrease the number of hospitalizations quickly.
Don't go anywhere, Rams, because JJ McKinney is up next to give you your weekly weather report.
Awkward. Do I look familiar? I should. You might remember me from here. Here. Or maybe even here.
But an awkward silence can be a great thing.
It can actually be a perfect moment to reach out to a friend and ask if they're okay if they seem down.
Doesn't matter how you say it.
You all right?
Everything's okay?
Oh, gee.
You all right, girl?
You cool?
Bugging dog.
Just show you're there for them.
Go on, Kelly. Seize the awkward.
Hey, you haven't really been yourself lately. Are you okay?
Find out how you can help a friend with their mental health at seizetheawkward.org.
Welcome back from the break, Rams. My name is JJ McKinney, filling in for Michelle Ellis to give you your weather rundown. Now, let's get right into it. All right, so for today's current conditions in Fort Collins, we're going to see a degree temperature of about 81 degrees Fahrenheit tonight, with wind coming from anywhere from 5 to 9 miles per hour, gust hitting about 15 miles per hour, and sunset from about 7:22 p.m. So it's looking like a hot, very, very hot night tonight in Fort Collins. Definitely very, very warm, but in comparison to the rest of the week, a lot more chill than all the weather that we have seen. So for overnight lows, we're going to have anywhere from about 50, the mid 50s, anywhere in Colorado, and some reaching about 40. So we're going to get anywhere from about 40 to the mid 50s here. And specifically along I-25, you can see places like Denver and Fort Collins having temperatures ranging anywhere from about 54 to 56 degrees, with Fort Collins having 54 degrees and Denver and 56. And along I-70 in places like Grand Junction and Vail, you can see anywhere from highs coming from 59 all the way to lows hitting 43, such as in Vail. So as you can see, we're going to have a very cool, nice night in Fort Collins and just all around Colorado in general. All right, now talking about tomorrow's highs, you can see that we're going to have a pretty hot day here in Colorado. You can see anywhere from the mid to high 80s to even the low 90s in places like Pueblo, anywhere from I-25, seeing places like Fort Collins and Denver and Colorado Springs, all three in particular, having temperatures reaching 89 degrees Fahrenheit. And then coming from places like in I-70, you can see places like Grand Junction, again, with a high of 96 degrees, and even the lowest being in Vail in 83 degrees, and Lyman in about 86 degrees. So as you can see, we are going to have a very, very hot time in Colorado tomorrow. So I might suggest wearing anywhere from some cool clothing. That way you may be prepared for this weather. All right. Tomorrow's forecast is going to be about a high of 89 degrees Fahrenheit with a low of about 56. You can see that it's going to be mostly sunny, with wind gusts coming from 5 to 8 miles per hour, gusts from about 8 miles per hour, and sunset happening at 7:20. So again, a very hot day tomorrow. I might suggest wearing some cool clothing. That way you may go outside and enjoy that Fort Collins sunshine and just have a great time. So coming to our weekly or week forecast, you can see we're going to have a very warm week at Fort Collins. You can see with places like tomorrow on Wednesday having a high of 89 degrees, a low of 54, with some clouds, but overall a sunny day, with Thursday having about 95 to 57. And then we come into the weekend, you can see the high being 97 and the low being 87. So still a very, very hot weekend. Some thunderstorms, some clouds, but overall still very warm. So overall, it's looking like we are going to have a very, very warm, sunny week for all of us to enjoy. All right, well, Rams, that is all that we got today for the weather, but make sure to stay tuned to hear about why the Durrell Dining Hall is closing.
I'll be right back.
Hi. You think you're probably sober?
Yeah.
But you're thinking about taking the back roads home, just in case. If you're probably sober, then why would you do that? Good choice.
Probably okay isn't okay. If you see a warning sign, stop and call a cab, a car, or a friend.
That's a full glass of wine. I'll be chatting you later.
Welcome back from the break, Rams.
Over the past few days, on-campus students mourned over the closing of Durrell Dining Center. On September 2nd, Housing and Dining Services sent an email to all students announcing that Durrell's dining operations will fully shift to the Marketplace and Express. The dining center will be open for seating but no longer offering all-you-can-eat dining. This change had to be made due to a shortage of staff, both new and existing. While this may be a disappointment for some, luckily the Foundry will stay in operation for all students living on the north side of campus. Durrell will still offer their express dining through Grubhub and their Marketplace, where students can buy a variety of snacks and packed goods. Currently, there is no news as to what the future of Doral will look like. Maybe there is still light at the end of the tunnel for this beloved dining hall.
If you're new to Fort Collins or even an incoming freshman, you may have only recently noticed the new bikes and scooters in Fort Collins that replaced the bird scooters from yesteryear. Bright orange and eye-catching, these relatively new devices are littered across the campus at Colorado State University and the surrounding area. But only a year ago, other e-scooters were scattered similarly. CSU students have noticed the change as well.
I think that they're probably a little bit scary to some people, but I bet it would be easy to figure out.
The electronic bikes and scooters can be easily accessed through an app on your phone. The devices are founded by Ford Motors and are said to be built for safety and sustainability.
Devices like these aren't only taking over Fort Collins, but the globe as well.
This technology, and one similar to it, may become a lot more common, not just in Fort Collins, but all around the globe. E-bikes and scooters can be easily accessed through the Spin app.
If you're an avid hammock user or even slackliner, you may want to be aware of these new regulations put in place for the use of such items in City Park. City staff added new rules to abide by in the Fort Collins Tree Protection Guidelines issued on August 10th. These new rules allow hammock and slackline users to set up on City Park trees as long as they follow certain rules, such as limiting height off the ground, requiring padding between the trees and the device, making sure not to use trees that have branches or forks on their trunk, and not leaving a hammock or slackline unattended, among many others. A complete list of the rules can be found on Fort Collins Forestry page. More information will likely come out soon with plans for Buckinghorse Park, including a possible hammock garden. There may be good news in store for all you hammock lovers in the future. Now we will head over to Natalie Devereaux, live in the studio, who has the full rundown on one of Fort Collins' oldest homes. Natalie?
Thanks, Robbie. 528 West Mountain Avenue has stood vacant for the last 2 years. It was once known as the Moore House and was recognized for its vibrant history of a school teacher who worked to better the community. But now caution tape and trespassing signs overshadow its past, and presently it is referred to as a meth house. The community is split on whether to move forward and allow a new home to be built on the lot or to preserve history and award the house landmark designation.
For nearly 120 years, the 136-year-old Mountain Avenue property was in the ownership of the Moore family. Jessie Moore was a prominent school teacher in the 20th century. She worked in the district for over 50 years teaching immigrant children who worked in the sugar beet fields.
She was almost ahead of her time in seeing that an immigrant population didn't have to be prejudiced against.
In May of 2020, the Green family bought the property with intentions of demolishing it. However, their plans have been halted as their application triggered a historic review.
That requires that we post the property, open it up for a public action before we can issue any demolition permits.
The yellow sign that stands in front of the house caught the attention of residents, and nominations to save the home were sent into the Historic Preservation Commission.
Would Jessie Moore come back today and recognize her house? She definitely would. It has not been changed.
The owners of the property do not want their home to receive this historical status, making it a non-consensual nomination. If the house is given the designation, any renovations will have to be approved by the city, making demolition impossible. The Greens' pushback on this process increased when an environmental assessment found traces of methamphetamine in the structure.
Even imagine that the town has an interest in keeping a meth house in the neighborhood, a house that's been derelict, that's falling to pieces.
The home has been deemed uninhabitable until structural and hazardous issues are addressed.
The last hearing for this case is expected to be on September 21st at the City Council meeting, where a resolution will be reached one way or another. If the council passes the designation, it will only be the third time a non-consensual landmark status has been placed on a property. The first time was in 1985 and again in 2016. We will keep you updated on the story as it continues to unfold. Back to you, Robbie.
Thanks, Natalie. Now, after being canceled last year, the Fort Collins Fortitude 10K run returned this year.
Truly music to our ears.
The recent Labor Day tradition returned with a successful turnout following its absence due to COVID-19 in 2020. On the morning of September 6th, hundreds of local residents gathered just outside campus to begin this 10K race. The route took them through the scenic streets of Old Town, around City Park, and back to the heart of campus right across from Canvas Stadium. After the race, a fair with food trucks and business booths was available for each participant and their families to enjoy. Despite the long year wait and a few changes, the Fortitude Run saw a great turnout, and it was amazing to see so many locals celebrating this Labor Day weekend.
Just so you know, when you guys run the Fortitude in the future, you're welcome to wear wings. Not a problem, especially if it helps you a little bit. We'll let that happen.
Well, if they do allow me to wear wings, maybe I'll give it a crack next year.
Colorado State University has always boasted to stand for sustainability, and that remains true as researchers at the school fight for a climate research-based branch of the government. The climate is rapidly changing, and the leadership with the Energy Institute at CSU decided to do something about it. The college conglomerate proposed that the climate be held in the government and public's eyes to the same standard as science and technology. The Advanced Research Project Agency, or ARPC-C, would continue to fight for equity in the government. However, the state school's idea is backed by President Joe Biden's budget proposal to Congress and focuses squarely on climate issues. The final proposed agency has yet to be funded in the final congressional budget, but the CSU school continues to study new strategies to deploy in the fight against climate change. We will continue to follow the ARPA-C proposal to the White House Climate Office here at CTV.
There are only a certain number of times CSU students can have dining hall food each week. I know sometimes I like a change in pace. Well, lucky for us, 2 recently reopened restaurants will bring 2 more with them. Last month, Totally 80s Pizza and Ciao Vino reintroduced Italian food and drinks to the streets of Old Town, and it looks like they have inspired another Italian Center restaurant, which will be known as Marchetelli's Cucina Italiana, to be brought to life, offering more traditional Italian dishes. Another will offer more Texas and Kansas-style foods. Smoke, a Denver-born barbecue place, will also bring a fresh taste to Fort Collins. It will be hard to beat my personal favorite restaurant in Fort Collins, which is Stuffed.
Oh, yes.
Gotta love it.
You cannot go wrong with that poutine burger, but I'm going to have to give that smoke place a try. I love barbecue.
It sounds good, doesn't it? Honestly, yeah, for sure.
Well, Rams, that is all the news we have for you tonight.
But don't go anywhere because Brandon Cruz has the full rundown of CSU football.
There are 16 million children struggling with hunger in America. That's 1 in 5 daughters, sons, neighbors, and classmates who don't know where their next meal is coming from. Yet billions of pounds of good food go to waste every year. It's time we do something about it. Feeding America is a nationwide network of food banks that helps provide meals to millions of kids and families in need. Visit feedingamerica.org to help them feed even more. Together, we can solve hunger. Together, we're feeding America.
What's up, Bramley? Welcome to the second ever installment of Bleacher Beat. I'm your host, as always, Brandon Cruz. Tonight, I'll take a look at what exactly went wrong in CSU football's opening season loss to South Dakota State. Plus, Rams volleyball earned its first win of the season on Saturday. Find out how they got it done. All that and more on this week's Bleacher Beat, starting right now. Let's kick things off with some CSU football. Coming into Friday's matchup, it had been 646 days since Canvas Stadium hosted fans, and boy was it missed. With a packed student section highlighting a crowd of over 32,000 in what was one of the biggest turnouts in Canvas Stadium's young history, the atmosphere was rocking, pregame through a rainstorm and lightning delay. Then the game happened, where the Rams were blown out by the Jackrabbits, 42-23. After both teams exchanged touchdowns to begin the festivities, South Dakota State ended the first half with a comfortable 21-10 lead. And though CSU fans still held on to some hope, their optimistic outlook didn't last long, with the visitors tacking on 2 more TDs in the third to pull away. CSU would eventually score a couple of meaningless fourth quarter touchdowns to pad some stats, But in the end, it was far too little too late, leading to a disappointing 0-1 start to the season for the Rams. So, what in the world happened? Why was CSU so outmatched by an FCS school? Well, the first answer lies on the defensive side, specifically that front seven. The Rams had the 12th best rushing defense in all of college football a season ago, allowing just 109 rushing yards per game. But in this one, CSU got run all over, with the Jackrabbits recording 242 rushing yards, more than twice of what CSU gave up per game last year. Pierre Strong Jr. led the way with over 130 yards on 13 carries. And sophomore Isaiah Davis wasn't too far behind, going for 84 yards on just 15 attempts. And South Dakota State's ability to open up holes for its backs was far from the same on the other side of the field. CSU could not run the ball at all, with South Dakota State able to pound the inside of CSU's O-line and shut down the Rams' running game, holding starting back David Bailey to just 49 yards on 19 carries. The Rams lost badly up front, and it showed on the scoreboard. And of course, how could I forget about that wide open overthrow by Centeio in the first quarter? Now, granted, completing that pass would have not guaranteed a Rams victory. Well, far from it. But it was still a missed opportunity that stuffed any sort of momentum towards the home team. That, along with 2 third-down and long conversions from the Jackrabbits, were certainly notable what-ifs from the night. But let's move past the negativity for a sec. I would be remiss if I didn't mention the 2 bright spots for CSU. First of all, they have one of the best punters in the nation. Ryan Stonehouse booted for 4 times for a remarkable average of 55 yards per punt. That's 2 football fields worth of punts. And tight end Trey McBride hauled in 13 catches for a total of 116 yards. Another super impressive stat line. So even with all the lows, Ram fans still had a few things to look forward to when they host Vanderbilt this upcoming Saturday at 8. And speaking of positives, Rams volleyball picked up their first W of the year, defeating North Carolina State this past weekend. After losing the first 2 games of the road trip against Northern Colorado and North Carolina, CSU finished things off strong, taking the win in Raleigh against NC State, 3-1. Kennedy Stanford led the Rams with 16 kills, while both Sasha Colombo and Karina Labor chalked up 3 blocks. The Rams will return home on Friday for a doubleheader at Moby, first against Southern Illinois Edwardsville at noon, and then Oregon State at 7. And CSU volleyball was not the only women's sport in action this past week. Rams soccer concluded their week at home against Kansas State, but came up short, being shut out by the Wildcats while also surrendering 4 goals. This one saw K-State in control early, with 3 first-half scores. After halftime, though, CSU was able to make things a bit more interesting, putting pressure on the Wildcats' defense with 7 shots of their own. Unfortunately for the Rams, none of them hit the back of the net, resulting in K-State cruising rather easily to a 4-0 win. Still looking for their first win of the season, soccer will get another crack at it on Sunday, hosting Idaho State at noon. Well, Ram fans, that's all the sports action I have for you tonight, but don't go away just yet. Noah Pasley is up next to give you updated on all the spice in entertainment.
Hey, Bobo, do trees tell each other stories?
I'm sorry, I'm afraid I don't know that.
Hey, why don't we go find out? Listen.
Do clouds take naps?
I couldn't tell you.
Dad, do stars visit their friends?
Look!
Hello, Fort Collins, and happy Tuesday. Hope you have all had a restful and relaxing Labor Day weekend, and welcome once again to entertainment. It's hardly a holiday here in the States if it doesn't come with a thinly veiled excuse to drink, and Labor Day is no exception. But fear not, Loveland Ale Works has got the Northern Colorado community covered. Loveland Ale Works, a local, family-owned brewery, celebrated the holiday with not one, but 2 special releases in store. The holiday rollout, which ended yesterday, included their Imperial Stout paired with vanilla ice cream and their Blackberry Lemon Bar Sour paired with a lemon sherbet. It's safe to say I'm jealous, but thankfully, Loveland Ale Works is far from the only company with dessert drinks on the mind. In fact, one Fort Collins distillery has just that and much more in store for their patrons. Fort Collins has no shortage of bars and breweries, but here at Copper Muse Distillery, the drinks take inspiration from everywhere.
I can't take credit for any of the infusion recipes. Well, I actually have created a few now, but the vast majority were created by past staff and current staff.
They've taken that to you doing the same kind of creativity with the cocktails. We regularly encourage on seasonal cocktails, and so every one of our bartenders and servers are coming up with their own cocktail.
The owners have even taken to a little competition to motivate their bar staff.
We actually have, we total at the end of the quarter, because it's a seasonal thing, whose cocktail sold the best. And I think as it winds down, the current summer seasonals, the Nooner is the most popular.
But the staff isn't the only secret to Copper Muse's magic. The distillery also draws on local businesses for the best flavors.
One local vendor we partner with a lot is the Old Town Spice Shop. Sean owns that, and the lavender vodka, always get our lavender from him. All the spices for our spiced rum come through him. Last year with COVID, we were super grateful that the community came out to support and buy from local businesses for the holidays.
If you want to support a local business, you can find Copper Muse at the Exchange in Old Town. Even after all these years, it's amazing to see just how diverse the offerings from our local businesses can be, even in just a short few blocks. Speaking of local, one Northern Colorado festival is back this coming Saturday, perhaps made even more timely after our 2020 experience here at CSU. The Wrist Canyon Mountain Festival, benefiting the Wrist Canyon Volunteer Fire Department, will be held Saturday, September 11th at 11830 Wrist Canyon Road in Bellevue, Colorado. The festival, which will feature a book sale, baked goods, food trucks, and a whole lot more, will be from 10 in the morning until 4 in the afternoon, and proceeds from the festival will go towards the Wrist Canyon Volunteer Fire Department. But if this Saturday has snuck up too fast on you, the NoCo area has no shortage of festivals through the weekend, though few as distinct as this Estes Park offering. The 45th annual Longs Peak Scottish-Irish Highland Festival will return to Estes Park, starting this Friday from 9 in the morning till 5 at night, and will host an array of activities and events, including whiskey tastings, Celtic rock and folk music performances, and of course, a classic strongman caber toss competition. Sure, it's all well and entertaining to watch someone hurl a tree trunk through the air, but do you ever feel like athletics are purely a human endeavor? Well, that Larimer County Farmers Market is poised to change your mind on Saturday. For the first time ever, the Larimer County Farmers Market will be hosting the inaugural Chicken Olympics, as 3 poultry participants face off for what is hopefully an extra bag of feed. The groundbreaking games will be hosted at 200 West Oak Street in Fort Collins from 9 in the morning until 11. Well, folks, that's all I've got for you this week. Be sure to swing by our station tomorrow for CTV's Geek Show, and have a great rest of your week, Fort Collins.